You're listening to Mr. Credit on San Diego 1700 with local credit expert Derek Evans. Now, live in studio, Mr. Credit.
Welcome to Mr. Credit. We are live and local here in San Diego, bringing you the most important hour in radio because we're telling you everything, and I mean everything, that they don't want you to know. When we say they, remember who we're talking about here. We're talking about the media, the credit bureaus especially, big banks, the government, Wall Street gangsters, and especially debt settlement companies, or really anybody who's trying to get you to spend your money unwisely or take your hard-earned money right out of your wallet. Go to MrCreditRadio.com if you want to send me an email. Do a Facebook search for Mr. Credit, and you will find me there. First things first, Padres. What can I say? Padres played another game. Padres won another game. I actually went down there last night, believe it or not. At 5 p.m., I was able to buy seats, front row, left field bleachers for Padres. 3 tickets, total cost $65. $65. I'm sitting in the front row in the left field bleachers. Got a great view of Tejada's home run. We won the game 9-3. Gonzalez hit a blast too. I mean, these Padres are something else. Now, obviously, you know, the Diamondbacks stink. But so what? I mean, they stink. We're going to win the game, right? We may as well win it big. And it was just nice to get it to the ballpark, guys. I mean, I'm telling you right now, if you haven't been down to Petco, I had these guys from Chicago sitting right next to me. I'll tell you more about that later, but they were just in awe of how cool the park was, how easy it was to get there, how good the views were, how cool the park in the park was. It's awesome down there. We got a game today, again against Arizona, so if you want to see another beating or see the Diamondbacks cry on the way out of town, then go down and watch the game at Petco tonight, 3:35. If you can't make it down there, because obviously it's a work day, then you can listen to all the Padres games right here on San Diego 1700. I encourage you to save this station in your dial. We're going to talk more about the Padres with one of my good friends and really the man behind Mr. Credit, the company, David Barmack, who's in the studio with us today. David, thanks to you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Credit. It is absolutely... God, I love the clapping. I'm not used to it. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. You know, I just would like to say I've been in this credit restoration education business for going on 11 years. And what you have here 4 days a week from 12 to 1 on AM 1700 is just, it's awesome. If I was not in the business and I was just listening to it, I would be listening to it every single day because it's that good. It's contagious. It's right on the money. And I just would like to thank you. I think what you've accomplished here and the people here is so right on. Just continue doing it.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. Anything encouraging is always good. And, you know, the idea is to help people improve their credit, become educated, and have a good place to go to have a good time, too. You know, credit scoring, the credit scoring models, the credit bureaus, you know, people look at that like it's an insurance seminar. The truth is it's the most important aspect of your financial life. And the reality is that people need help with it because it's something that is kept from you. The information about how this stuff worked is kept from you on purpose.
Well, you're going to eat it whether you like it or not.
So that big companies can make money off of your ignorance. I try to make sure that you don't have that situation on your hands so that you can understand the way these things work so that you don't have to just take it. You don't have to eat it whether you like it or not. You can actually eat it if you like it and don't if you don't. And that's the idea. So it's great to have you here. Now, David runs the company, Mr. Credit, which is the subsidiary of the show here. And basically, you know, you're the one who helps everyone who calls in, who wants, to find out what they need to do with their credit, how they can improve their scores and clean up their credit reports. It's something that, you know, I've done for several years. You've done for many more years. You're the perfect person to do that because of all the knowledge that you have, and I definitely want to probe as much of that from you as I can today. But let's talk Padres for a second. I know you're a big baseball fan. You like to listen to Hacksaw, who's on the Double X. He comes on right here on San Diego 1700 at 2 o'clock, I believe, every day. And he's got a great show. He talks a lot about sports, of course, a lot about the Padres because we are the home of the Padres for the radio. What do you think? I mean, it's always it's always interesting to see how these things shape up at the end of the year, because the last couple of weeks of the season, you really start to see some true colors. Now, the Padres have a pretty young team. They've added some veterans, which is good, but I'm concerned that they're too hot too early. What do you think?
Well, that's an interesting point. You could look at various pennant races, division races over the years and studied, how teams' momentum would have been better to peak at the end of the season or the last few weeks to carry it rather than start it in mid-July. I think that's a good point. I think what's so interesting about this year is you've got 4 or 5 teams in the National League fighting for 4 positions, and the wild card race is extremely open. And the Padres are really, on paper, just about as good as anybody else out there. And I think it's going to come down to who gets hot right at the end.
It usually does. Yeah, that usually is what all that matters. You have this, 6-month season, and then, it just all comes down to a few series to see who's going to make it all the way. But that's why really, it's hard to say who, the team that wins the World Series is necessarily the best team. They're just the hottest team at that moment. But it is what it is. That's the way it's been for years. That's not going to change. I just feel like if we were playing like we are right now, a month from now, we would be better off. Now, that said, you look at the Padres and you could say also, well, we don't have anybody who hits over 300, any regular players that hit over 300. We don't have any outlandish streaks going or anything other than we're just putting together good defense and winning games with just regular offense spreader all the way up and down the lineup.
Pitching, defense, guts, and a lot of heart and a clutch hit here or there. They find ways to win the ball games. The good teams do. And Bud Black has really brought them along to a point where when they show up, they got a lot of confidence every day. They're really not afraid of anybody. Phillies coming into town over the weekend, starting to play their division rivals, the Rockies and the Dodgers into September. It's going to be interesting. They have a tough stretch.
That's a good point that you make, actually. The Phillies are coming in town Friday, so we got a good weekend of baseball. With the Phillies, they're obviously a team that's, let's see, if we take a look at them here, they are 2.5 games behind Atlanta over in the East. They're bidding for the wild card. They've got a good team, no question about it. And so we've got some good, tough games coming up this weekend with the Padres taking on the Phillies. Now, the interesting thing to me also about San Diego is that I still don't think we have our best foot forward. The thing that bothers me about our outfield right now is I think you have to have Tony Gwynn in the outfield somewhere. We're a defensive team. I understand the idea. Last night we had Hairston in left, Denorfia in center, and then Ludwig in right. Well, Ludwig's not going anywhere. He's going to be in right. I think Tony Gwynn is better off in center field. Or left field, for example. I saw Scott Hairston, unfortunately, miss a couple of pretty easy ones. He kicked one around in the corner that cost us a run. Those are the kind of mistakes you don't want to be making. You don't really want to be seeing when you're a defensive team. So I'm a big fan of putting Tony Gwynn back out there.
I like Tony a lot out there, too. Defense is really, really big in September and the postseasons. You need the guys that are going to, get those balls in the gaps. And not only is Tony, the best defensive outfielder that they have, he's a clutch bunter, and he sure showed that in a couple of situations where he moved the guy over. And in a game, a playoff game, the last week in September or the last day, when you got to move a man over to put him at second and third, you want a guy like Tony who can either come off the bench or do it and lay it down.
Also, speed on the base paths is nice to have. You got a guy who's laying down bunts who also has the opportunity to potentially turn that into a hit if somebody doesn't make a quick decision, but who can bump for a hit if you have a guy on second, let's say, and nobody out, with the consequence being he moves over to third. And who can steal bases, who can move around and get that run in a close game. I'm just a big fan of putting him. I understand the idea. Denorfia's a better hitter, and Scott's a better hitter than Tony is. Tony's hitting like 215 or something like that. I understand that, but for me, I like the speed. I like the defense. That's what we're built on. Let's stick with that.
That's what's been doing it for them the whole year. Remember in preseason, they were preaching how many stolen bases. The Padres were going to be a running team this year, and sure enough, to this very day, as we go into tonight's game, they're still a running team.
Yep.
And
they're going to be, because they're young. They've got that element going. They did, like I said, bring in some veterans. They got Tejada and Ludwig in. Those guys aren't necessarily fast. Those are some big bats, some veteran voices in the clubhouse and things like that. And I was a little bit against it in the beginning, but I think if we get Tony Gwynn back in the outfield, I'll be a happy camper again. And when I saw Miguel Tejada's home run land out in the bleachers in left field last night, it reminded me the last home run I hit, not including softball, but in actual baseball. I think I was 14 years old.